Morning, friends of 52 Limited. I'm really happy to be here. There are several mistakes that job seekers make in interviews that are entirely avoidable. And so I'm going to run them through in order from the sort of lesser offenses down to the number one absolutely do not do offense. Okay, let's start with number 10. Number 10 is not outwardly expressing interest for the job or asking for the job for that matter. A lot of times job seekers will think, well, I've gone through the application process that was extensive. I'm sitting here interviewing in the interview, hot seat. Of course I'm interested in the role, but the employer doesn't necessarily know that, especially if they've cycled through several candidates and, one after the other. It can really help distinguish you from the candidate pool if you actually say at the end of the conversation, I'm really interested in this position and I would love to be your next creative director. What are the next steps in the process? So express outwardly, say it out loud. Number 9 is not sticking to the question. You have to remember that hiring managers and recruiters, they have an agenda. They have a list of questions that they need to get through. And so really stay laser focused on what it was they asked. Absolutely bring up specific examples of things that back up, the claims you're making about your background and giving evidence about why you're the best candidate for the job, but really stick to the question that was asked and don't be tempted to go off onto too many tangents. Number 8, throwing shade on your current or your past employer. This is a real red flag for a prospective employer if a candidate comes in and maybe they get a little bit too comfortable and they'll start revealing the bad and the ugly about their current job or their peers or the toxic work environment. And it's just a real, as I said before, red flag. Nobody wants that negativity brought into potentially into their workplace, and they don't want you throwing them under the bus in 5 or 6 months' time. So just remember to stay positive and don't be tempted. I don't care how miserable you are, how upset you might be in your current role, or maybe you've been laid off and you're feeling kind of depressed about that. Don't let it spill into your conversation and keep it positive. Number 7 is focusing more on yourself than on the company and their needs. I think that when job seekers walk into a conversation, they think, these are my greatest accomplishments, and I really want to make sure that I get in all of these talking points and tell them about all these specific achievements. But if they're not relevant to the job at hand, maybe they're looking for more of a team leadership, a team leader versus an individual contributor. And so if you're talking about all of the kind of minutia of certain things that you did that were more hands-on when they're looking for a strategist or a leader, then there's going to be a real disconnect there. So be sure that you have really studied that job description and you know what it is they're looking for, and then focus on their needs. You need to be the prescription to their pain point. Number 6 is bad eye contact. Both virtually and in person, this is a common infraction among job seekers. So in a virtual setting, I'm sure we've all heard by now, you've got to make eye contact with that lens of your laptop camera or your webcam. And one of my favorite tips is to put on a Post-it note little arrows pointing to the camera that say, look here. And that can be really helpful so that you're maintaining really good eye contact. it's okay to occasionally look at the screen and look at the person's face. That's okay once in a while, but really try to train yourself to look at that lens. And if you're in an in-person interview and making steady eye contact is kind of uncomfortable for you, then you can always look at the bridge of the person's nose or their mouth, so you don't feel like you're, just completely looking into their eyes with this steady gaze. Number 5, dressing too casually. So here we are, we're all working from home. A majority of us are working from home, and we've, kind of defaulted to really casual on the really casual end of the spectrum, but don't let that spill into an interview situation. Treat it as though you were going in person, and to know what to wear. People have a hard time saying, I don't know what to wear to the interview. Use your recruiter coordinator. Ask them what people wear in the company, or study the company's website. Look at their social media to kind of get a sense for what people are wearing, and then take it up a notch from there so that they can see that you've made the effort, that you're taking it seriously, and it's another great way to stand out. Number 4 is going on and on and on and on and on with your response. Brevity is key, especially in the initial interview with where you're having maybe a phone screen, or maybe these days a lot of recruiters are just using video as their initial screening tool. And they have 30 minutes and they're talking to a lot of different people. And so they have to get through their list of questions. Really, at any stage of the interview, they have to get through their list of questions. And so it is your job to keep it brief and keep your answers tight. And we're looking at a 2-minute limit for your response time, 1 minute for the answer to tell me about yourself. That should be even shorter. So 1 to 2 minute responses in response to most behavioral questions is more than enough. And you can do this, but if you think, oh yeah, that's no problem, just have somebody ask you an interview question and record yourself and see how long it takes for you to respond. And you might be surprised at how fast 2 minutes passes. And then just, using a good framework, using something like a SOAR format, like situation, opportunity, action, results, and, getting your stories in mind and how you're going to frame them ahead of time can really help you tighten those responses. The third is a bad audio or video setup. And we've been reading and hearing more and more about this because that's how we're all interacting now, mainly is on video. And so do that background check before your interview. Make sure that you declutter. There aren't heaps of laundry in the background, or there's not this big distracting piece of art or something behind you, but on the other hand, you don't want it to be too sterile either. You don't want the mugshot look. So some happy medium, but definitely do that, because it's really all about eliminating distractions. And so making sure you have good bandwidth and making sure that you're framed well. I've stood back a little bit from my computer today so you can see my hands a little bit as I talk. If you have too tight of a frame where it's just your neck up or just your shoulders up, that is not enough. They can't see you gesturing, or they can't see any body language really that way. So you want to really show a little bit more of you. And also test that audio. Make sure it's clear and not echoey in the background. Number 2 is not showing energy. This is a huge one. This is what can really help you stand out from others. So when you come on to the video call, make a point to say, good morning, smile, give a little wave. I'm really happy to be here today to talk with you about this position. And use gesturing to your advantage, and use that voice inflection and say that you're interested. Like I said before, those things all go a long way to showing that you have some energy. Picture the recruiter on the other end who has talked to 15 people already that day. And so they're getting a little tired. They're only human. So it's up to you to keep them awake and interested. And the last and top infraction, the top mistake, is just not being prepared or doing enough research. Know the company, know the job itself, know the people that you're going to be interviewing with, and have those stories prepared along with knowing your strengths, your weaknesses, why you're in the job market. Tell me about yourself. Why should they hire you? And that'll give you a great foundation from which to build a really great conversation. Even if you only have a day or two, you know, sometimes interviews will come up very quickly. Really put in the time because it will show. And so those 10 tips, along with a free guide I have that you can go to my website, dalenabradley.com. There is, you can go to dalenabradley.com/interview tips, and there are 25 ways to win over your interviewer that includes some of these tips, but a lot more. And I have a lot on my blog as well. I would love if you would connect with me on LinkedIn. And so I hope this helps you in your next interview, and I wish you all the best.